But I really appreciate, though, the focus that this leadership forum has given in terms of how we actually facilitate this infrastructure boost that we know that we need. I apologize, I was a few minutes late coming this morning. I think I was just trying to demonstrate how critical it is to get better road infrastructure, bridge infrastructure here into Washington, D.C. But I was kind of chuckling to myself as we're sitting there stuck. And I thought, well, this is exactly what we're talking about, folks. I flew back from Alaska all yesterday afternoon and saw the benefits of congestion at SeaTac and here at DCA last night. And it's one of those reminders that we've got a lot of work to do, and I appreciate the efforts that so many of you are focused on here at this leadership forum. And I do appreciate the opportunity to say a few words about my Strategic Energy for America Act. We call it the SEA Act. I don't know why we get so caught up in acronyms, but I kind of like this one. But before I get into the specifics of this particular bill, I do think that it's kind of important to just take a step back and look at a snapshot of this moment in time, one that probably previous generations strived to achieve. Many of them thought that it was never going to be possible, but really for the first time in decades. This country is the world's largest oil and gas producer. Our exports have surged to an all-time high. And I think it's always good to not only look at where we are today, but take a quick look back, not too far back, 15 years ago, think where we were. U.S. oil production was at a steady decline. Imports accounted for nearly half of our consumption. We were dangerously reliant on volatile international sources for fuel. You look at the situation with regards to our economy, it was pretty shaky at the time. The good news for us is that that downward trend did not continue. And I think we would all say that where we are today is a good place to be. And it's okay to give ourselves a high five as to where we are and say, good on us. But I think we all need to remember, you don't get here by accident. It doesn't just happen. It was American innovation, it was American ingenuity that really earned us this place in time. It was hydraulic fracking, it was horizontal drilling, it's other improvements in technology that really has shifted, and some would say completely shifted, our domestic energy landscape. Of course, the US shale boom, it just sent shockwaves through the energy world around the globe. And it was shortly after that sea change began that I helped lead the effort in Congress to lift the 40-year-old ban on domestic crude oil exports. And this has boosted the market for U.S. explorers, sending a signal to the world that here in America, we really are ready to be that global energy superpower. So with rising production and exports came jobs for Americans, economic growth, new revenues, greater prosperity, and enhanced energy security for our allies and ourselves. And we've been able to keep so much of that wealth here at home, what will ultimately amount to trillions of dollars, and we're able to then reinvest it here in our U.S. economy. President Trump has announced that, quote, the golden era of American energy is now underway. And I think he's really backed up those words. We've seen him working with us to open new areas for development, to reduce regulatory burdens, to streamline the approval process for energy infrastructure. There's really been a very considered and focused effort in this regard. In the latest national security strategy, the administration refers to America's central position in the global energy system as a leading producer, consumer, and innovator. And I think that they're really right. Some countries may generate or utilize more units of a particular type of energy than we do, but no nation No nation delivers as much energy to as many people, as efficiently, as safely, as cleanly, and with as much productive effort as we do here in the United States. So if that's a position that we'd like to retain, and I would argue that we absolutely do, we have to consider, where do we go next? What are our next steps? And we need to know that we've got to compete in this arena. Every day we have to compete for this prosperity. So back in July, I unveiled a new strategic energy initiative that's really designed to help us make the most of where we are now, but not just be satisfied with where we are now. Let's figure out how we carry it into the future. So this strategy acknowledges that while America is securing our position of strength, other countries, allies, trading partners, great powers, and rivals are also working very hard to establish their own positions of strength within the global energy system. So just because we're sitting here in a good position, we should not assume that we've got the lead, we're in a good place, we don't need to worry about anybody else. That global competition and the demand for energy outside the United States, which continues to increase sharply, we know that, it requires, I believe, a new global approach to our nation's energy future. And I look to my state of Alaska as a perfect example here, as one where just making sure that we are enabling energy production, that's good, but it's not enough. We also need to be able to move that energy to markets where it can be consumed. This has been Alaska's struggle for decades now when it comes to our natural gas. We have significant quantities, frustratingly significant quantities. And it's frustrating because we haven't been able to facilitate that mega project yet to move that gas to market. So it's not just enough to say that we can produce it, that we have it, that we can produce it. We have to be able to move it to where it can be consumed. Developing Alaska's bountiful natural resources, both on and offshore, requires additional domestic infrastructure and some, like regasification terminals, that would be located overseas. The bottom line is that we can talk about it. We can talk about it. But government rhetoric, MOUs, workshops in really nice places are really no substitute for the real deals, the real projects, and the real money if we want an effective global energy strategy. So what we need are some significant, tangible results. Solid deals with secured financing, offtake agreements, and delivered cargoes. These are what provide guaranteed jobs for Americans. Trade in raw commodities provides considerable economic benefit, and building terminals, processing plants, ports, and other infrastructures domestically and internationally offer the kind of bottom line growth that we're looking for. Energy-based prosperity requires long-term investments and relationships which ultimately form the basis for any enhancement to our national security. Natural gas liquefaction and regasification facilities, we all know, can require decades-long contracts, billions of dollars of capital, and years of permitting and construction. Civil nuclear projects, practically impossible without diplomatic agreements, and often require substantial government-backed financing. The relationships that develop from such projects provide decades of further partnership. So the strategic environment is a competitive one, and expanding the global reach of American energy requires a robust strategy that harnesses our nation's vast means to secure prosperous ends. And so that's why, building on our strategic energy initiative, I've released this discussion draft of the Strategic Energy for America Act, which again, the C Act, that I referenced at the beginning here. What this draft provides, what this legislation provides, will really be an opportunity for us to sharpen our tools of statecraft through hopefully a rational but a long-term approach. And there's a few key points here that I want to just lay down for your consideration. We enable the new Development Finance Corporation to support civilian nuclear energy projects in developing countries. We direct the Secretary of the Treasury to oppose energy-specific restrictions that are imposed by multilateral development banks. And we establish a strategic energy portfolio at the Export-Import Bank here in this country and reauthorize EXIM through 2031. The Act would also raise EXIM's exposure cap to $200 billion, address outdated restrictions, and modify the 2% all-stop freeze that's related to the default rate. So what we're trying to do with the SEA Act is to provide a framework to strengthen our nation's geopolitical posture with a strategy that's focused on the nexus between the commodities and the infrastructure, not one or the other, but both of them. The nexus between commodities and infrastructure. Right now, it's just a draft, but I've put it out there because I want to start this conversation. I think that this is an important discussion for all of us to have. But I'd hope that you would take a look at it. I'd hope that I can count on you all to back me up on the goals that we have in common, whether it's the SEA Act or whether it's another policy out there, because securing America's global energy reach is something that I think that we can all strive for. So thank you for what you're doing this morning. Thank you for the collective and the collaborative thinking about how, as a nation, not only we are leading at this time and this moment today, but how we continue that leadership going into the future, how we continue to be competitive in this global market and show the leadership that I think here in this country we're all proud. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning. I'm going to follow my colleague up the hill because we're starting a hearing at 10 o'clock in the Energy Committee on energy efficiency. So I'm going to skedaddle out of here, but I appreciate the chance to be with you this morning. Thank you.